Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar on Azure Active Directory, getting started, detecting changes and hardening security. It's really great that you have taken some time from your schedule to be a part of this. I thank you for that. I would like to wish you a very good morning, good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're from. Before we get started with today's webinar, I'd like to take some time to introduce myself. My name is Ram Vaidyanathan and I'm a cybersecurity analyst at ManageEngine. What that basically means is that I get to research about the latest cybersecurity trends and cybersecurity solutions that organizations are adopting around the world. Using this information and the information I get from talking to professionals like yourself, I try to look at ways in which our own solutions, that is ManageEngine solutions, match our customers' expectations. As you are probably aware, the world of cybersecurity is always changing. If you need to keep our data safe, if we need to keep our employees safe, and if we need to keep our companies safe, we need to be constantly on our toes. I've been with ManageEngine for the last close to 6 years now, and I'm very thankful for all the new things I've learned from people like yourself. If you'd like to get in touch with me about anything cybersecurity related, about anything that we cover in the webinar today, or just about anything, even if it is to say a simple hello or hi, my email address is right here on your screen. It would be great to receive an email from you. Today's webinar on Azure Active Directory will be useful for IT administrators who are getting started with Azure and Azure AD, and those who want to monitor changes in Azure AD with a sophisticated monitoring solution like AD Audit Plus. I'll try my best to make this session interesting and valuable for you. At the same time, it would be great if I can get just one thing in return from you. Please try to implement at least one thing that you learn in this webinar in your own organizations. In this way, you can create an instant impact at your company and show something of value to your management. The concepts that we will discuss today are things that you can use throughout your career. Knowledge of Azure Active Directory has become extremely important for IT administrators today. As we go through the webinar, please note down your questions. You can use the chat option in your GoToWebinar panel and send the questions to me. Perhaps at the end of the webinar, we can have some time dedicated for Q&A. In case I'm unable to get to your question today, I will certainly email you the answers within 24 hours. So to reiterate, please send your questions to me using the chat option. Now, if you have questions once the webinar gets over, that's fine as well. You can email me your questions. My email address, like I told you earlier, it's right here. It's ram.v@manageengine.com. By the way, this webinar is being recorded. So each of you should be receiving a video recording of the webinar within a few days. So please watch out for it in your email inbox. All right, so that takes care of all the logistics. And here's the agenda for today's webinar. We'll answer these questions on your screen one by one. First up, what is Microsoft Azure? And then, what is Azure Active Directory? Why do we need Azure AD? How is Azure AD different from on-premises Active Directory? What are some important Azure AD changes that you need to monitor? And by doing all of this, how do you improve the security at your organization? So these are the questions that we will address in the webinar today. So first things first, what exactly is Microsoft Azure? Well, to put it very simply, it is the second largest cloud computing platform available in the market after Amazon Web Services, or AWS. According to Microsoft, Azure is an ever-expanding set of cloud services to help your organization meet business challenges. It gives you the freedom to build, manage, and deploy applications on a massive global network using different tools and frameworks. So how does Microsoft do this? How are they able to serve their customers around the world with such high computing power and flexibility? They do this because in the back end, there's a huge infrastructure. It's a global infrastructure, in fact. It's a huge global infrastructure of Microsoft-owned data centers with hundreds and hundreds of servers and storage systems. Your company or any company that uses the cloud can leverage this and focus on your core business itself instead of worrying about how you can deploy your business to customers. You use the cloud services, but all of these services are actually on Microsoft's infrastructure. Since the pricing model is pay as you go and you only use resources as and when you need them, it might be very cost effective for businesses to adopt Azure or any other cloud service. All you need to use Azure is an internet connection, and then you can connect to the Azure portal. The Azure portal, let me quickly jump to my Azure portal right now. The Azure portal, just give me a second. So here's my instance of the Azure portal. This is a web-based unified console with which you can build, manage, and monitor everything from simple web apps to complex cloud deployments. To build what you need with Azure, you can easily access Microsoft resources and services through this portal. So here are the services. So now with this background, let's consider a real use case. So let's quickly jump back into the presentation. So for this part of the webinar, I've referred to the YouTube video, Azure Tutorial for Beginners by Edureka. So let's say that you want to build a website. What do you need to do to build a website? Take a look at this slide. Your users want to access your website. So you'd first need a load balancer that will distribute traffic emanating from your users equally onto your servers. Once the traffic comes to the servers process the request. The servers will then need to communicate with the file system to access the file and display it for the users. But the servers would not know what files need to be displayed for the user. By this I mean, all the files are loaded available at the file system, but we don't know what exact files to display for the user. And this is why we need a database. The database contains the list of files that need to be displayed for the user. The server will therefore first get the list from the database, and then it will fetch those files from the file system, and then those files can be displayed for the user. Now, this is something that's easily implemented on Azure. The servers in our use case are provided by a service called the app service. The load balancer is implemented by the Azure load balancer. The database can be implemented on Azure using MySQL database. And finally, the file system can be implemented using blob storage on Azure. Now, you can effortlessly access and build using each of these services. Just watch what I'll now do using my Azure portal. Just go into more services, and here on this page, you have all the different services arranged under different categories. Just take a look at this. These are the different categories of services. Just take a look at this. Now, app services, which are used to implement the server in our use case, they are found under compute. We have app services. And here, you can quickly create an app service. All that you need to do is fill out the information on this page in order to create an app service. Now, load balancers, they are found under networking. So let's quickly take a look at networking. So here's networking, and here we have load balancers. And you can quickly create a load balancer as well by filling out the information on this page. For creating the MySQL database, just check under databases in the categories of services. So we have databases, and you have Azure database for MySQL servers, and you can create this as well. And finally, for implementing the blob storage, just look for storage. and you have storage accounts, create storage account, and you can create a blob storage over here. It's as simple as that. So now, these are just 4 services in Azure. Before I talk any further, let me quickly go back onto this page and show you the extent of the services that Microsoft Azure provides for you. Just take a look at this page here, and let me quickly scroll down. So there are 22 different categories of services, and within each, as you can see on your screen, you will have numerous services. So there are probably more than 200 services that are available for you over here. So now that we have some idea about what Azure can do for us and how it can make our lives really easy, let's talk about one more very important service, and that's Azure Active Directory. This can be found under Identity on the same page. Just take a look at this, Identity, and we have Azure Active Directory. So here we are into our Azure Active Directory. And as you can see over here, you have Manage and you have Monitoring. Under Manage in Azure Active Directory, you have things like users, groups, organizational relationships, roles and administrators, devices, app registrations, licenses, and so on. And under Monitoring, you have things like sign-ins, audit logs, diagnostic settings, and usage and insights. So this brings us to the question, what exactly is Azure Active Directory? So let me quickly go back into the presentation. The definition of Azure Active Directory is from Microsoft themselves. To put it very directly, Azure AD is Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service, which helps your employees sign in and access resources. Now, resources can be of 2 types. You can have external resources. These are resources that are built by others outside your organization. This can include Microsoft Office 365, Azure, and thousands of other SaaS applications. And then you have internal resources. These are applications which exist on your own corporate network and intranet. Your applications that are running on premises. You can also have numerous cloud apps developed by your own organization that are also considered internal resources. IT administrators can use Azure AD to control access to apps and app resources. I'd like to highlight a few things here that are benefits of using Azure Active Directory. Each account that's created on Azure AD has a unique identity. You can use the tools on Azure AD to protect user identities and meet your access governance requirements. The identities are stored in Azure AD and accessible to your organization's cloud service subscriptions. As an IT administrator, you can set up the roles and permissions for users to access or not to access these applications. The other concept that you should know about is the concept of a tenant. A tenant is automatically created when an organization signs up for a cloud subscription such as Azure, Intune, or Office 365. Basically, a tenant represents a single organization. You can use Azure Active Directory to deploy multi-factor authentication as well. So this is used when accessing important organizational resources. You can also use Azure Active Directory to automate user provisioning between your on-premises AD and your cloud apps, including Office 365. Let's now talk about the differences between Azure AD and AD on-premises. First of all, let's be very clear about one thing. Azure AD is not the cloud version of Active Directory. So, if you deploy an on-premises AD on an Azure virtual machine, that is not Azure Active Directory. On-premises AD uses authentication and authorization protocols such as Kerberos and NTLM. On the other hand, Azure AD uses SAML and OAuth 2.0. In Azure AD, you don't need to create any forests or domains. Instead, you will have a tenant which represents your entire organization, like we discussed earlier. So it goes without saying, you'll also have, or you will not have any domain controllers in your Azure Active Directory. Like on-premises AD, you still deal with users and groups in Azure AD, but you don't have any organizational units or GPOs. So it's a flat structure, unlike the hierarchical structure that we find in on-premises AD. Now let's look at the licensing models of Azure Active Directory. Azure AD has 4 different licensing models or editions, and these are free, Office 365 apps, Premium P1, and Premium P2. To get more information about all of these 4 editions, you can just go onto this site over here, and you get a lot of information about the 4 editions and what each of these include. But I would like to highlight a few of the features of these 4 editions here. So the free edition, which you can find in the column over here, it provides user and group management or the ability to add, update, and delete users and groups. The free edition also includes Azure AD Connect Sync or the ability to extend on-premises directories to Azure AD. It has multi-factor authentication. The free version also helps you enable single sign-on across Azure, Office 365, and many popular SaaS applications. However, you need to be clear about one thing when it comes to single sign-on using the free edition. There is a cap of 10 apps per user at one time. The free edition also gives you basic security and usage reports. Let me repeat that. It gives you very basic security and usage reports. Now let's take a look at some of the features of the Office 365 Apps edition, which you find over here. So these are the extra features that this edition gives you. So this edition gives you everything that the free edition gives you, plus it also gives you self-service password reset for cloud users. So let us be very, very clear about this. This is only for the cloud users. It also has the feature of service level agreements for the Azure infrastructure. Now, when we look at the features of the P1 edition, so let's scroll down. So here are the features of the P1 edition. We will have all the features of the Office 365 Apps edition, plus features such as self-service password reset, change or unlock with on-premises write back. Take a look at this feature. But on this point, I'd like to caution you somewhat. Imagine a situation in which a user has forgotten their password and they cannot even log on to their on-premises Active Directory. So how is this user going to access their web server to make use of this feature when they've forgotten their on-premises password in the first place? How will they even access their browser? Microsoft says that the P1 edition can help you enable self-service password reset with on-premises write back, but they expect the user to use another user's computer to make use of this feature. Anyways, that's a topic for another discussion. The other features of P1 are group access management. It also gives you password protection or custom banned passwords. You'll also have advanced group access management features like dynamic groups. Take a look at this. You have dynamic groups and group creation permission delegation. The P1 edition also has features such as conditional access based on group, location, and device status, and third-party MFA partner integration. The P2 edition builds upon the P1 edition and has a few extra features. It includes everything from the P1 edition, plus it also has identity protection features such as vulnerabilities and risky accounts detection, risk events investigation, and risk-based conditional access to your apps and critical company data. So here we are talking about things such as just-in-time access and just enough access. You can get these high-end security features in this edition. You'll also have identity governance features in the P2 edition, such as privileged identity management, access reviews, and entitlement management. So as you can probably guess by now, if you want really advanced security, if you want really great security, you would need the P2 edition. All right. Now let's jump back into our Azure AD portal and take a closer look at some of these things. So here's my Azure Active Directory. So the first things first over here, you can see my role. You can see that I'm a global administrator and I'm using Azure AD Premium P2 edition. And I have all of my users over here. Let's just take a look at the users. Just take a look at this. So you can see that one of these users, this particular user here, was created on Azure Active Directory, and all of these other users that I have in my demo setup, they were all created on premises. So here's a big difference when it comes to Azure Active Directory and on-premises Active Directory. In on-premises Active Directory, you need to go in and set up a few things in your environment before you could start auditing and monitoring things. In Azure Active Directory, you don't need to do anything. Azure AD is automatically tracking changes in Azure by default. The results can be seen in the audit logs. So let's take a look at the audit logs, which you can find under monitoring. Take a look at this. These are all the audit logs I have in my setup. Does this look familiar? Does this not look like the event viewer that we have on our on-premises Active Directory? Yes, it does. And really, it's just as complicated. We do have some filters up top over here. Just take a look at all of these filters. So you have the ability to zero in on the events of your choice. So you can use the filters here and create a so-called report of your choice right here on the screen. But still, it's very complex. And by the way, every search that you do on the screen here with the audit logs, it's unique. So if you leave the browser and then come back onto this page, your search is lost. If you want to save your searches, you need to use PowerShell. Similarly, if you want alerts, you need to use PowerShell, and that too, it's only available in the premium versions. And then there's another huge disadvantage when it comes to using the Azure Active Directory portal, and that has to do with how long Azure AD can store our audit logs. In the free and Office 365 app version, audit logs are stored only for 7 days. And in the P1 and P2 versions, they are stored only for 30 days, just 30 days. This is obviously not going to be enough. If you want to archive logs older than 30 days and want access to them, for example, think of this very real life situation. When an auditor comes knocking on your door, they're going to want to see logs older than 30 days for sure. So in these situations, you need to use PowerShell. So as you can see, you have very limited flexibility. And if you want to do a few things to heighten your security, you need to use PowerShell. Another huge drawback of using the Azure AD portal is this. You can only download up to 5,000 records from the Azure portal. The records are all sorted by the most recent, and by default, you only get the most recent 5,000 records. To put this number into perspective and to realize how small a number of 5,000 is, you need to take a look at your on-premises environment. Just go into your event viewer and look at the number of logs you have over there. You'll have thousands and thousands of logs over there. And when the Azure AD portal gives us the most recent 5,000 records, it's just not going to cut it from a security and compliance standpoint. What this all means is we need a solution that can help us face these challenges. We need to monitor such things as users and groups. For example, we need to monitor when a new user is created. So one way to do this is you can go into your audit logs, which you have over here, and apply the relevant filters and search for all the users created in the last 1 month. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are looking for all the add user activities in the last 1 month. And this is going to give you all that information. It's very similar when you want to look for all the groups that have been created in the last 1 month. And this is going to give you all the groups that have been created in the last 1 month. As you can see over here, this is extremely complicated and you can't really zero in and drill down on all of these records. It's very, very cumbersome and complicated to use. It has a lot of limitations. However, consider this. You can use a solution like AD Audit Plus, which can give information for you in a far more usable form. So let's quickly jump into AD Audit Plus. Let's go into the Reports tab and go into the Azure AD module. And let's go under User Management, which is right over here. Recently created users. So in this report, you get the list of users created for the time period. So in this case, the last 30 days. You can get all the users created in the time period of your choice. And it can be any time period without any limit. You can then export this list into a file format of your choice as well. You have the option of exporting it as a CSV, PDF, XLS, or HTML. That's how easy it is. You can also add or remove columns to build this report the way you want. Take a look at all of this flexibility that is available to you over here. All of this is going to help you harden the security of your environment. And one more thing, you don't need to keep coming back and running the same report all the time. You can automate any report you build by scheduling the reports to run automatically at a time of your choice. So all you need to do is go into scheduled reports for this. For example, if you wanted the list of all the users added into groups over the last 1 week, and you want this as a weekly report, you can easily go into this page over here and set this up. In this way, you can get a report about this in your inbox. Perhaps you would want to review this first thing every Monday morning. You would probably want to look at all the groups created in the last 1 week, or all the users created in the last 1 week every Monday morning, and you can have that emailed to you into your inbox. Now, you could obviously do all of this in Azure AD itself, and for that you'd have to use PowerShell. AD Audit Plus just makes it really simple for you. So that's what we can do with groups and users. Let's now talk about roles and administrators. In the on-premises Active Directory, we have things like domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, and so on. Now, these are all privileged groups in your on-premises AD. In Azure AD, we have something called roles and administrators. Instead of a domain administrator that we have on-premises AD, we have something called a global administrator. Just take a look at this. So here, my role is a global administrator, and take a look at what a global administrator actually can do. A global administrator is one who can manage all aspects of Azure Active Directory and Microsoft services that use Azure AD identities. So let's quickly go into this. And here are all the global administrators that we have in our environment. From a security standpoint, it is extremely important to monitor and track changes to your global administrators group. Again, what you need to do is you need to come back to your audit logs. So you need to come back to your audit logs and you need to use the relevant filters in order to track changes to your global administrators. But what you can instead do is you can go and use a solution like AD Audit Plus, and under role management, so let's go into reports once again, and we have role management. You have a report called recently added member to role. Take a look at this report. Just go into this report. Let's scroll down so you can see the power of this particular report. And here's the role name in this column right here. And you have all the information here available to you within seconds. Take a look at this over here. It says company administrators here on this report, but this actually refers to the global administrators. This is because while this role is referred to as global administrators in the Azure portal, it is identified as company administrator in the Microsoft Graph API and Azure AD PowerShell. AD Audit Plus is pulling this information for you. So these are all reports, but you want to be able to go one step further than just reports. Or actually, I think it's quite a few steps more than reports. If you run a report as and when you feel like it, or if you get a scheduled report in your inbox, that's not going to be enough all the time from a security point of view. After all, an incident could take place at any time, and you're just waiting until a report reaches you, or you run a report yourself. That's not going to be enough. So for this reason, you need to be able to set up alerts. For example, anytime a user's role changes, you may want to be alerted about it. For setting up alerts, you can go to the Alerts tab, which you can find up top. And you can easily set up an alert. If anything important changes in your environment, you can immediately know about it, or rather get alerted about it. You can get the alert emailed or SMS to you. And you can set that up as well. Of course, you can also view the alerts on your dashboard itself. So here in AD Audit Plus, in the dashboard, you can get all the alerts, and it is staring you right in the face. Let's now see how you can track changes to Azure applications. Like we discussed some time back, Azure is going to allow your employees to sign in and access both internal and external applications. This is going to be extremely critical for identity and access management in your organization. You have to constantly be on top of who gets access to what resources and when and where. In case a user adds a new SaaS application, you need to get a report on this. You may also want to get an alert on this. In case a new OAuth 2.0 permission is added, you may again want an alert. If you have a new consent to a critical application, again you may want an alert. Now, all of this can be done using the Azure AD portal. So here you have applications under Manage. So let's take a look at that. Under Manage, you have app registrations and you have enterprise applications also. But if you want to track changes to these, again, you need to go back into your audit logs and you'll have to perform a search using the relevant filters up top. And then you'll have to drill down into the events of your choice. And even then, the results are going to be very limited for the same reasons we discussed earlier. The better way to do all of this is use something like AD Audit Plus and get reports and alerts as needed. So let's go into AD Audit Plus and take a look at this report under Application Management. You have recently added application, recently added OAuth 2.0 permissions. So let's quickly take a look at this particular report here. Take a look at all of these columns as well. So you get answers to the 4 vital W's, the who, what, when, and where, by looking at these reports. Recently added OAuth 2.0 permissions. You get all of this information. You also have information about recent consent to application. So by proactively looking at this information and being alerted about it, you definitely heighten the security posture of your company. And then let's discuss one more thing. We have license changes. Since companies pay for licenses on a per user basis, it's extremely important to track changes. This can potentially save you a lot of money. In the Azure portal, you have licenses under Manage. So let's take a look at that. You have licenses here. But again, this is going to be very, very limited for you. And in AD Audit Plus, you have a tab called License Management under Reports. And you can get information about recently license changed users. And you can also run a report on recently license changed groups. This will give you some rich information using which you can take some intelligent decisions. The other thing that you need to do, and this is especially important from a security standpoint, is you need to audit your logons of users. Let's see how you can do this in your Azure AD portal. You have sign-ins under monitoring. And once again, as you can see over here, this becomes very complicated and cumbersome. To run custom reports and be alerted about security incidents, you need to use PowerShell if you're using Azure Active Directory. But the more intelligent alternative would be to use a solution like AD Audit Plus. So you can take a look at these reports under User Logon Reports. You have information about all the logon activities for a time period of your choosing. You have all of this information. You have information about logon failures. You also have information about logon failures due to a bad password. And you have information about logon activity by IP address as well. So in this way, you get very powerful information and you can ensure that you are defending your organization from security breaches to the best of your ability. This is how you can harden the security of your organization when you're using Azure Active Directory. At this point of time, I'd like to ask you two questions. If you could answer these questions for me, that would be really great. These questions would be launched as poll questions on your screen right now. The first question is, how do you know Manage Engine AD Audit Plus? So we'll just take a few seconds for this. If you can answer this question for me, that would be really, really nice of you. We'll just take a few more seconds for this now. All right, thank you so much. And I have one more question. Do you want our product specialist to assist you with a free evaluation of the solution? This question is being launched on your screen right now. If you can take a moment to answer this for me, that would be really nice. Let's take another 5 seconds for this because I'm still getting a few responses. All right, thank you so much. Let me quickly go back into the presentation now. So before we end this webinar, let's do a quick recap and summary. In summary, what did we cover today? We saw what Microsoft Azure is. We saw how organizations can leverage Azure to build and deploy cloud apps using Microsoft services and resources. We also saw some basic navigation within the Azure portal as you go about building these applications. Then what did we do? Then we jumped into Azure Active Directory and why monitoring changes in Azure is so critical for improving security at your organization. We discussed some of the major changes we need to monitor in Azure AD. We saw how and why using the Azure AD portal is complex when it comes to monitoring changes. We need to use PowerShell to get even the basic reports and alerts in the Azure AD portal. And then we discovered why using a solution like AD Audit Plus simplifies things for us. In AD Audit Plus, we saw how we can monitor changes in users and groups, changes in applications, changes in roles and administrators, changes in licenses, and how to audit user logons. All of these things are very critical to improving the security of our organizations. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. I hope you found the time you spent with me today valuable. Like I said earlier, please think about that one thing that you learned today that you can immediately apply in your organization and create some tangible value for your company. If you have any questions, my email is right here on the screen. Feel free to email me. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much. Have a good one.